Hi, my name is Gina Marie Rodriguez, and my preferred pronouns are she, her, and hers. I identify as an Italian American and Puerto Rican woman, so I'm Italian Rican. But please don't call me a white girl. There's usually a certain connotation when that term is used in connection with me, so just don't. My family is from all over, primarily Italy, Puerto Rico, and Spain if we're going back. I speak English and somewhere in between elementary and conversational Spanish, as well as very elementary Italian. And this is what looking bilingüe means to me.
What does being Latina mean to you? So who is Gina as a Latina? And are those the same?
That is a good question. I feel like it's changed throughout the years, definitely since I was a child and now. Being Latina when I was a kid was looking like J-Lo and being as cool as J-Lo. Like that was triggered because I watched a lot of Selena. So I either wanted to look like J-Lo or Selena as J-Lo or, like.
I do. Yes.
There was something about like the confidence that the Latinas that I met just in school or in passing, as well as in my own family, they all exuded this kind of confidence in themselves and in their culture and just who they were. As a child especially, I did not understand that concept. So it was, you are confident or you are not confident. There's no gray area there. So that was like really heavily tied to Latinidad for me because that's just what I saw and it wasn't who I was. So I couldn't possibly also be Latina, right? But I still have trouble identifying myself as a Latina a lot of the time. And I think that's probably heavily tied to my inability to speak the language fluently.
For you, it wasn't just about seeing these women that were confident, it was also seeing them speak the language.
Yeah. Or, I mean, in my case, I grew up with cousins and aunts and uncles who all had a bit of a Nuyorican kind of accent. It's that slight lilt in the way they speak. And I think it's the coolest thing ever. That was the denotation that they were definitely Hispanic. And I thought, that was really cool. And I guess I still think it's really cool.
I think something about having the conversation with you that I really, really loved, you kept bringing up, was your impression of things as a child. Do you remember your impression of Spanish as the language growing up as a child?
When I was a child, I didn't really grow up hearing it fluently anywhere. My house, we spoke English and that was it. And my father does speak Spanish fluently, but again, my mother doesn't, so we only spoke English in the house. Would teach me little words here and there. So I would learn how to say nose and ears and eyes. And I thought I was the coolest kid in the world because I knew how to say those things in Spanish. I thought, my dad was like the coolest person in the world at the time because he spoke Spanish. He could speak 2 languages. For me, we were talking about this recently and I basically used it as like a toy or like an accessory. I knew the basics. I can say te quiero mucho and, because we had to. I say that and I say bendición before I leave a room, but that was it. That was basically the only Spanish that we really knew.
I love that though. I love that. I mean, when you said that to me, I was like, oh, that's such a cool way to think of it. Like for you, it was like a peppering, peppering of this, and it's like a game that only certain people were like privy to. You rarely hear such a positive outlook on a language. Usually people see it, or children can see it as a hindrance, or oh, it makes me different, it makes this. You almost celebrated that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you say that because I wouldn't have thought that at all, but I guess if I were to think like a child now, I could see how being different is scary, but for me, it was all I wanted was to be like those kids who could speak another language. I thought that made you so cool and so smart. And plus, you could like eavesdrop on other people talking about that.
It's interesting because you are bilingual. And this is something that, this is not I'm telling people they're bilingual tour, but it is something that I find, to be clear, people think that they have to be able to like defend a dissertation before they're really bilingual or trilingual.
Well, that's how they make you feel in a lot of classes. You know, that's the reason I dropped Spanish when I was in college, because it was an entirely Spanish course and I didn't want to lose my scholarship if I got a bad grade.
I'm glad you said that. You talked a lot about the hurdles you had, which were fascinating, in your journey to learn Spanish as a young kid. So what are those hurdles? What hurdles prevented you, in your opinion, from learning the Spanish language to the level that you wish you had? Because you do speak Spanish, so I want to make that clear. You do speak Spanish, you can communicate, but what were those hurdles?
Definitely not speaking it at home. Most people, and not all, but I think most people who are fluent in more than one language, two languages or whatnot, are learning at home, whether it's from their parents or their grandparents or what have you. So for me, I didn't start until I was like 13 to actually learn a wider vocabulary than just my body parts. By the time I got to 8th grade, you're a preteen and you're extra insecure then. So everything is embarrassing. And to me, the fact that my last name is Rodriguez and I couldn't speak Spanish fluently already, that was a huge embarrassment. And I was terrified to actually say the words out loud. Even if I could read off the page, I would kind of whisper it in class. You know, it was scary, especially because in the area that I grew up in, there were a lot of Hispanic children. So there were a lot of Spanish speakers. I'm sure that it was in my head and I was making it up, but I felt really judged. The first official teacher I had was in 9th grade. She favored the kids who spoke Spanish already. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're a Spanish teacher. Why are you favoring them? They already know what they're doing. And she, I guess, must have asked me if I spoke Spanish, and I said no. And she just kind of scoffed at me, and it just reinforced everything that I was just saying about feeling judged and thinking that not only were the other students judging me, now I have my teacher judging me.
She gave them permission to judge you as well.
Yes.
Because whether people want to admit it or not, our leaders
exactly
do affect the way that we decide that we can respond to things.
That judgment just really stuck with me for a long time. Clearly it still has. I still remember it, and the way I felt sitting in that seat with her.
Did you ever have the same desire or push to learn Italian or connect with your Italian heritage as you did with the Puerto Rican side?
I'm proud of both of my cultures, and it seems to me, in my experience, that most Italian Americans are just comfortable not speaking the language, because of us don't. It's a small percentage of Italians who were raised in America who actually speak the language. We're kind of cool with that. We're about like the food and the, loud talking and the mafia movies. We're super proud of that. I did eventually study some Italian, and I studied abroad in Rome for a summer. When you can speak Spanish, especially in this area, it looks great on a resume, and it's just overall really great to have in the professional world. I just figured that I had to pick one, right?
When you think of your future and your Latinidad, what do you see? What is your vision?
For me, I always said that I didn't want to die having never been fluent in Spanish.
Damn, girl.
It's kind of dark. We're going morbid, but like, that's true. Like, I really do want to be able to speak Spanish fluently. And I think most of that work that I have to do to get to that point is probably in therapy, like working through the anxieties of feeling that otherness, or feeling that judgment, because I'm still dealing with that. I trip over my own tongue when I'm trying to speak Spanish too quickly, because I can speak English very quickly when we're having a normal conversation. So my desire is to do the same thing when I'm speaking to someone in Spanish.
Well, that's a normal thing, because your tongue is not used to speaking in that way all the time. It's an exercise. It's one of the reasons we do a lot of tongue twisters, because you're just changing the way that you're saying things, and you're using different parts of your mouth in ways that you're not normally using them.
Yeah. If I trip up for one sentence, I just stop and I shut down and I can't speak anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit better at working through that, but it really depends on the person that I'm talking to also, because some people are very patient and understanding of what's happening. And then you have other people who are just getting mad at you for not being able to speak.
Talk to me about how different people, and now that could be who you remember right now, or just, I guess, who is memorable for good or bad reasons. Talk to me about how they respond and react to your Latinidad.
So it's kind of run the gamut. I kind of blocked out a lot of those instances because they're traumatic and they've affected my self-esteem in general, specifically in regards to being Latina. I had just gotten accepted into Rutgers, and I had received a merit-based scholarship that was specifically designed for Hispanic and African American students of a certain grade point average. And this person told me that the only reason I got into school at all was because of my last name. That was like the first time it really hit home that that's racist. That is a racist statement. But I hadn't really been on the receiving end of it until that point, because again, I look a certain way and I'm not automatically pegged as being a Latina. So that one has stayed with me until this day. And I always, from that point on, kind of felt guilty that I was like receiving this scholarship because I look a certain way, you know. And at the time, back then, it wasn't as common to talk about the differences among Latinos, you know, that you can look white, you can look dark skin, you can be brown, you can be, you know, we look a whole lot of ways. There's a spectrum. But I didn't understand that as a kid, so I just felt like a fraud. I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's how people see me. They see me as this like white girl who's pretending to be Hispanic, especially because I don't speak Spanish. And that one, you know, was from a close family member. So that one hurt. And I still struggle with it, that I almost feel like a fraud to this day. And when auditions come up for, you know, a Latina character, I don't know if I'm supposed to audition. It all ties into who am I? What am I? Am I allowed to be more than one thing? It again ties back to societal pressures because we like to identify people as one thing. I don't know why. Like, whose idea was that? But, you know, like, and that's not even just culture. We do that with, oh, well, he's an actor, so shut up. You can't talk about politics. Or he's a director. He writes too. That's crazy. You know, like as if people can't be multifaceted. I'm in my 30s now. I'm like just finally accepting the fact that I can be more than one thing, and I don't have to identify myself as only this or only that. I am a Latina. I am an Italian American, and it's okay to be both of those things.
Yes.
Kind of figuring out what all of it means, but it's going to vary per person. And for me, it's a journey that I'm on, still trying to learn who I am, really.